Hello and welcome back to my podcast. Thank you very much for being here. Today I'm going to talk about why healthy eating has got so complicated. And I'm going to give you some ideas about how to be discerning, about how you know what to listen to and what not to listen to, and some general tips. So it's good that everybody is, well, more and more people, not everybody, is interested in nutrition and healthy eating. And however, there is a lot of contradictory advice, isn't there? Even in the research, which I'll talk about in a minute, there's contradictory advice about diets. So it is really confusing, even for practitioners like myself. So it can be really difficult to know what to believe because there's so much contradictory advice. And actually, on social media, there's this sort of thing about, oh, I mustn't listen to somebody because they're on social media. And who should I listen to? And I appreciate that. I am on social media, but I am a registered nutritional therapist with 10 years experience. So, I am a credible source, but, you can listen to somebody who's got no training and they might be coming out with something really sensible. So I don't think we want to necessarily discount social media as a source because that's where we're getting all our information from nowadays, aren't we? And actually, sometimes we can get information from other sources and it's not necessarily reliable. So we do have to be quite discerning, and we have to think about also common sense and what resonates for us. So, why are we getting all this different information? Well, first of all, there are a lot of vested interests. People are trying to sell you something. Of course, products. We are flooded with different products, and some of these products might be good, but don't forget, everybody's different. So, a product for one person might completely change their life and be amazing, but that's not necessarily the product for you. I see this a lot with menopause supplements. Someone will say, oh, I'm taking this menopause supplement because my friend is taking it and she's feeling really good. Now, menopause supplements are really different. Every one has got different ingredients in it. So it really depends on what that person needs support with. There's so many different symptoms and so many different ways of supporting them. So again, it's very different. So one size does not fit all. So vested interests is my first suggestion to you about why there is contradictory advice. Because that if somebody's trying to sell you something, they're going to be pushing that direction on you. So of course, it's always sensible to see, from a sensible point of view, is somebody selling me something? However, saying that, just because somebody's trying to sell you something doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that. There are actually some amazing products that you can see for sale that are promoted on social media. I come into contact with things like that quite a lot myself, and actually, there are some really good things on there. So, we do have to be discerning, but also, like I said before, we don't have to completely disregard it because it's on social media. But in terms of the advice that people are saying, it's more about the vested interest of the person. The product, you can see that it's trying to be sold, and that's kind of quite transparent in a way. But sometimes people have got something that they're trying to promote themselves. So that's something to be mindful of. Now, research is something that people like to cite as a reason for supporting their advice, and that's, of course, very sensible. As a nutritional therapist, I am, somebody that works with research. However, it is worth paying attention to the fact that research can be very skewed. It can be very biased. You can cherry pick. You can find research pretty much to support pretty much anything you're saying. Um, Also, it's worth considering the fact that research has to be paid for. So, quite often we'll see research funded in a certain direction because there's the funding there. So, it might be a company that has some money that really wants to put emphasis and clout on their product. We see this a lot with pharmaceutical products because they have got huge amounts of money. So, they can put money into the research. There are other things that exist out there. There could even be food or lifestyle practices that no one's done research on because there just isn't the money. Nobody's going to make a financial profit. And some of the research that's out there even isn't even of good quality, or there can be some biases. It's useful to look at who's funded the research. You might have to search hard to find that information as well. So yeah, so research, it might not be out there. There might not, nobody has done a research paper on, the benefits of apples or something, for example, because no one's really going to benefit from that. But it might be that it's there. So, just being discerning about the research and not just putting everything on that. Um, and then there's another thing is if it's just one view, because of course, if somebody's had a good experience or is selling a product or service, they're going to have their own, only their perspective. And of course, that might not apply to you. So a classic example is somebody who's done a kind of carnivore diet, for example, and you might see adverts for this and maybe even a supplement that goes along with it telling you how it's changed their life and it's the only way. It's the only way. And yes, there probably are advantages and benefits to that diet for some people with digestive issues, because cutting out fiber sometimes can resolve, in the short term at least, symptoms. But what do we know about the long term symptoms? And also, from person to person, is it going to help you? Someone might thrive on that diet, someone else might not. And likewise for a vegan diet, absolutely the same. Someone might thrive on that diet, someone else might feel dreadful, particularly after a certain number of years, because like some of our nutrients are stored in the body, and eventually they will be depleted. um, so yeah, remember that actually sometimes when people are giving you advice, it's just their view. Just like this is my view. I'm biased. I've got my own biases. My biases are towards whole foods omnivore diets. That's my bias. So if you're a vegan, you might not like following me because that's what I'm always going to be saying. So everyone's got their own sort of thing, their own slant on things, and so they might be the reason why there's conflicting advice is because that person or people or company might be pushing a certain view. There's also like a lot of diet culture still prevailing. We've gone through phases where skinny culture has we it looked like it was improving, and we're seeing people of different shapes and sizes and featured in on the catwalks and things, which is great. But actually, at the moment, it's worse than ever. This kind of skinny culture. We're seeing a big push in weight loss interventions. And so again, you're going to get lots of information about, how to lose weight. And again, that's going to be not necessarily a well-rounded approach. It might be just, very, you know, just for one person, very much individual success stories. And, that culture keeps people alive in terms of like the business of well-being, the business of diet products or whatever. So that's something to be mindful of, that this diet culture just isn't going to go away anytime soon, unfortunately. So what else is on my list? Oh, fear. And unfortunately, fear is a great way of controlling people, influencing people. And so, of course, fear is another element in your confusion, because you're going to be told that something causes cancer and something else causes cancer, and you mustn't have this and you mustn't have that. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that people feel confused about, is the messages around, what's bad for the planet, what's bad for your body. And again, it's just having to be quite discerning. And also, it's not just about research, because again, research can be biased. And so, again, I say to people, try and use your common sense. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way at all. I mean in a way that gives you autonomy about making your own decisions about really what you think is going to cause disease. And of course, you'll have your own beliefs and your own ethics and your own, things that are important to you, your own values. And that's absolutely part of your own um, decision making process about how you eat and what foods that you are going to want to eat. So, of course, if somebody is strictly vegan, they're going to have very strong beliefs, and that will influence their food choices. Um, but when it comes to sort of cancer, um, huge push on meat causes cancer, and actually this research has been challenged by experts, and I think it's nuanced. So by that I mean it's not just black and white and like, oh, meat causes cancer. It's actually there's different types of meat. There's quality, grass-fed beef that's been cooked slowly is absolutely packed with nutrients. Maybe they're talking about, a processed burger with additives and fries cooked in vegetable oil, which isn't going to be good for you. Maybe with, a fizzy drink along the side. So it is hard to do research on nutrition because people don't eat single things in isolation. People eat food in different contexts and not in isolation. So just be when I say using common sense, what I mean by that is that we have been eating meat for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And it's not about, oh, well, we didn't have cancer then because it hadn't been diagnosed. No, we're seeing increases. So, yeah, you can believe that, and that's your choice to believe that. But what I'm saying is just try, when you are hearing different stories about what causes this and what causes that and what's good for you and what's bad for you, and that's absolutely fine if that's what you want to believe, but just use your own discernment. Try not to get influenced by the news, because the news is often a load of old nonsense. So, that's me getting a bit controversial, but, I just urge you to think about eating things that are in their natural form, because actually sometimes the alternatives are not natural, they're processed. And so we know that processed foods aren't as desirable. And that's something I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. But yeah, so common sense, be true to your beliefs. If you genuinely, um, you know, you're a vegan or a veggie because you really care about animals and respect, that's brilliant. So you carry on doing that, and just make sure that you get the most nutrient dense diet that you can get. And you have other lifestyle factors that complement health as well. So you stay in your lane, and likewise other people can. And let's not try and be too influenced by fear. Let's try and use common sense approach to our food choices, and not be too sort of influenced by the latest trend. At the end of the day, you probably don't need a product. You probably don't need a special powder. And so using your discernment is probably a really good idea. So in terms of what to eat, of course, you might not trust me as a source of information, and that's absolutely fine. I don't really have a sort of agenda of what I'm trying to promote, apart from I just think that eating naturally and the most nutritious foods that we can that's my thing. So that's whether or not that resonates with you, that's what I'm about. I'm just about is it good quality food? Are we looking after our animals and our crops? Are we looking after the earth? Are we overusing pesticides and things like that? So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So it's like finding your own, um, you know, your own thing that resonates with you in terms of where you get your information from and what values you have. The values are going to come into that. If you really care about nature, then perhaps you'll be more keen to, have foods that are more natural and foods that have got fewer pesticides in, fewer processed foods. And I'm not judging, if you want to use some processed foods sometimes, because of course they're convenient and that's absolutely fine. And, we've got to have balance and pleasure and things like that. But you've got to find your own values and use your own common sense. So I think I've covered everything that I want to say in that. Um, I hope you haven't come away even more confused. I just think we need to choose for ourselves and not be dictated to by other people in terms of what's right for us, because everyone is different. And actually, one type of diet might suit one person brilliantly and they might feel amazing, but someone else might not feel so good on that diet. So you do you try out what suits you, and see how you feel, in the long term, not just for a few weeks. That's the best way to see how you are, is actually, how's my energy? How's my mood? How's my skin? How's my gut? And if that's all good, well, maybe you're on the right lines. Anyway, feel free to put some comments, and ask me any questions. Thanks so much for being here. Please like and share and subscribe. See you next time.